Gals. I'm Brian.
And I'm Brad.
And if you may have noticed by the title, there's something amiss in this episode. I'm so glad you probably are only listening and don't see the video version because I did something with my hand, which is supposed to be a little jazz hand thing, and it looked like I grabbed a boob. So a weird new episode. I'm starting to real weird. The title is either the more conservative, if you liked Godzilla vs. Kong, then you'll love this epic movie, or the one I'm probably going to go with. You already know the answer. If you liked Harambe, then you'll love this epic movie. And I think me and Brad can agree this is an epic movie. But this is all right. Before we reveal it, because clickbait, what the movie is that you might want to watch. Moving forward, I'm going to be testing out doing a small 2-minute, don't fact check that, spoiler-free discussion like this with a clickbaity title. So that, if you're interested in finding new titles, you don't have the option to judge the book by its cover as much, before. Like if we had a Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2 spoiler-free discussion, don't click on it. Just don't. I hope you wouldn't, but maybe you think a movie's like Twilight that's actually good. So with that in mind, we're going to do our normal 2-minute, don't fact check that, spoiler-free discussion. And since these posts on Fridays and people usually have the weekends off, you'll have the opportunity to watch the movie in time for our spoiler-filled discussion on the following Monday.
And this movie you're gonna need all weekend.
Yeah,
because this movie is the king of being long.
It is. It's it'd be like you took the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, stitched them up together, and then separated them, and then chose one.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
This
movie definitely has 3 very defined, clear sections.
Yeah, and this is the theatrical version that we're reviewing, by the way. So, and it's over 3 hours long. I honestly, rewatching it because I've watched the extended edition, I can't remember what was cut out, but we can get into that.
See, that was the same with Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Is when I watched the extended version, I didn't know what he added.
I know the one thing he added in Return of the King is when that big like golem type creature, it was a giant thing, an ogre. I don't know. It's been so long, but he fights Aragorn, and it only stood out mainly because it felt like such a Guillermo del Toro scene. It literally felt like a movie from a Guillermo del Toro movie or a scene from a Guillermo del Toro movie, and it felt so out of place stylistically that I was like, oh yeah, this is why he did he's doing The Hobbit. And then he didn't. But yeah, you may have already guessed it because Brad is a masterful teaser of the movie. Brad, would you like to reveal the movie that you chose for our Marbles on Stream?
Sure. Sure, absolutely. This movie is the 2005 version of a movie that was originally aired in 1933 and is a fairly faithful rendition of it in a lot of aspects of the movie King Kong.
In a lot of good ways, and in a couple, in a couple. 2005, so you got that sweet CGI that works a lot better. But 2005, and we haven't updated all of our stereotypes for certain ethnicities.
Yes, we definitely haven't. But the CGI in this movie is pretty good. I mean, even it holds up to you nowadays. I mean, there's a couple scenes in the movie that were just like, you can kind of tell, but I mean, it's still for a movie that's 17 years old at this point. Um, Pretty holds up.
Yeah, I in the last day or two I've watched both the King Kong and Furious 7. And the reason I'm saying that is that Furious 7 is much better at composites, like green screens and things like that with false backgrounds.
They've
Better
got a lot.
better than this movie. But and of course it's nothing against the movie and it's not a judgment against anyone who worked on it. They did a great job. But in that movie you can fairly accurately guess where fake Paul Walker is. Um and this one, man, there's not I don't think there's a single frame where I questioned how realistic King Kong looked.
Yeah.
Like Kong is, if I didn't know it was CGI and if I was like 10 years old and you told me that that was a real monkey that I could see, you'd have to tell me before the movie ended. But I would be like, hell yeah, let's see Kong, man. I'd believe you.
Yeah. Andy Serkis does the what's that called? The motion capture for
Yeah.
mocap.
Yeah, before we all knew his name for his masterful directing of Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage.
Right. And everything else he's done, like the bad guy in Black Panther and the only white guy in Black Panther.
There were two because they had the nickname the Tolkien white guys.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because the FBI agent or CIA agent was white too, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was the guy. It was Martin Freeman who played Bilbo, so that's why they called them the Tolkien white guys. That seemed to hurt your soul.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Cleverness. The dad joke of that is just too much. Too much.
That was literally their. I mean, that eventually became their nicknames in memes. But before anyone online ever came up with that joke, that's what the whole entire cast called them. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie. What
another thing. I mean, you have to get past. It's better now. I think it's better aged than it was fresh, with Jack Black being one of the leads. Because at that time he was still very known for his comedy, where he's branched out a lot more since then. So I think Jack Black's character comes across better now than back in 2005. So
really?
I mean that's a plus. Yeah, just because 2005 he was still known very much for his comedy, very much for his like stupid. Now he's known more. He's got more movies under his belt, so he's a little bit more seasoned. So it feels less. It feels better. It feels less like he's about ready to tell a joke for absolutely no reason and laugh and then wiggle his head from waist to 3 feet above his head somehow.
Okay. I'm unfamiliar with that scene.
He's every time when he laughs, when he like hard like gives a good laugh, his head moves like 6 feet like both directions. He's just one of those people.
All right. I gotta look closer next time he laughs because I did. Hey, he might be a secret Bop It fighter.
Maybe.
Or not a Bop It. What was it? Wreck-'em Robot?
Oh, yeah.
Those games.
The fighting robots.
Where the head pops up. Yeah, man, this movie is so fucking epic. So something that just occurred to me is I think the current like Godzilla and Kong movies would be better served pulling from this movie's aesthetic than they would be pulling from Pacific Rims.
Yeah.
Cuz like I love Pacific Rim. Well, I don't love like I'm not in love with it. I like it. I really like it. I think it's really well done. I really loved its weather effects and how epic that felt. And then movies like Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, especially Godzilla versus Kong, they use weather and the epic scale so well, I think, that it made me want like big weather effects in Marvel movies. I noticed like, hey, the texture feels so different. But going back to this one is just
It's definitely. I mean, we'll get to it, but it definitely fills the budget. I mean, it definitely used every dollar of that budget.
yeah, but
Um,
like I don't know, it was just epic in scale. Just the cinematography, it never lost sight of the characters, the human characters. I feel that's a big thing that people latch onto when criticizing the newer MonsterVerse movies of like pretty thin characters or
yeah,
just wasting time. Like, get back to
wait,
the monsters. Why are we
yeah,
watching these guys? And there's like an hour before Kong's even on there, and still like the human characters have from that point on. I'm pretty sure more screen time than Kong. Uh,
yeah. I mean, it definitely makes that balance pretty nice. There are some things in there that aren't perfect by any means, but yeah, it definitely fills the gap. There's definitely the two stories of King Kong, them finding King Kong, and then also the stories between the humans themselves and the kind of moral ambiguity that kind of follows with that.
in what sense specifically?
uh Capturing a giant ape and then bringing it back to your culture.
Yeah.
Taking him out of his and bring him into yours.
Yeah, yeah, that'll do it. Um,
But yeah, overall I would say that this movie for me probably hits an edible just because of how well it ages and how well they did Kong himself. With Peter Jackson's knowledge, this was a passion project for him. He'd grown up seeing, or he grew up seeing the original Kong movie, so this was his passion project, the first one after the Lord of the Rings. So I would say it's an edible for me for a lot of reasons and then some.
yeah, I think for me it would be a mushroomy edible, but considering the outdated racism, I'm gonna flip it and make it a edibly mushroom. Like it deserves to be knocked down a little bit. Just scooch. There's some parts that seem interesting or look interesting, but and I'm literally it's 5 minutes. So it's when Andy Serkis's uh, human character is holding a machete.
Okay.
It's an interesting sequence, but it doesn't grab me. Like literally, if you had asked me before I watched this movie, like what was cut out of the extended edition, I'd be like, oh, that scene because it was interesting, but it didn't grab me. So that was what like I in my memory, I thought that was one of the deleted scenes, and when it was happening, I was like, oh, oh, okay, I was wrong. But
My reasoning for picking this movie as an underappreciated movie is I think that it gets a bad rap amongst the monster movies. I think it kind of
really,
I think it kind of gets wrapped up with all of those, and people just say, "Oh, it's just another Godzilla movie. Oh, it's just another King Kong movie. It's a monster movie," kind of thing, like one of the MonsterVerse. So
that's
a lot
interesting.
of people push it off.
I will say I was gonna my take would have or my guess would have been that this hit at the time, but since I don't hear anyone ever talk about it anymore, like they do the Lord of the Rings movies, I would feel it's underappreciated because it hasn't stayed in the conversation long enough. Like this is a movie that I think should be revisited, like I imagine the first King Kong was. You know what I mean? Like it should have a longer legacy.
Yeah, and it won a ton of awards.
That's
at
good.
yeah, a couple different places, but then it just kind of like fell off right away.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
I
Because
mean, there was a bunch of other movies that came out in 20 or 2005. I'm sure I can get that looked up before, but there was a bunch of really good movies in 2005.
yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, yeah, I think I want to rewatch this with my daughter and be like, okay, this is kind of racist. Don't like this part of the movie. But because it really is. I remember when I saw this in the movie theater, I I shed one tear during the movie.
One single one.
One singular tear. But yeah, now that now having revisited it, I am bummed that it doesn't have as long of a legacy. And how Godzilla vs Kong made me wish for more weather effects in the MCU, which I feel like Shang-Chi actually delivered on. Like after after seeing that when Shang-Chi came out, I was like, oh shit, we got some weather effects. Okay, let's go. I was thinking like I was thinking two things. One, Peter Jackson's got to do a Marvel movie, and you just got to let him do his thing. Like
You have to
so,
give them the budget for it.
yeah. Budget's not the issue. I just want the producers to be half as hands on as they normally are. You know, in helping directors, because I want Peter Jackson to have both his hands firmly on the wheel and just be like, I'm going to show you guys something you've never done. And just make like, I feel this is probably what Chloe Zhao was going for. I think that's her name with Eternals. And I mean, I don't know if it was the same for you, but Eternals did not hit with me. It
No,
was
I wanted it to. I went to the theater expecting it to.
it was big and epic, but the characters utterly failed for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like this is Peter Jackson's Eternals, which sounds so weird because that's not how time works. But like it, yeah, I think if he did like 1 3 hour Marvel movie doing whatever the hell he wanted, and just having the producers being there to execute Peter Jackson's vision, I think that could have a really positive effect on the MCU going forward. Just like, yeah, let's go more. Let's take an hour. Let's take half an hour just to set up the humans before they even do anything. Like this that I've heard directors say that sometimes you need an extra 20 minutes and it'll feel shorter. Like the movie will feel shorter adding 20 minutes than the reverse. Or how should I put this? Sometimes the studio gets a note that like this feels like it drags, so they'll want to just cut it down. They'll like literally cut it down, but sometimes you just need a little more, and then that helps the pace and it makes it feel faster, which is kind of antithetical when you're just thinking about it in terms of like math. But
Yeah.
this really, like, I was loving every second of New York before they even went on the boat. And then I loved the other 30 or 20 to 30 minutes we had on the boat before we even got to Skull Island. And it actually, I thought of three things. that whole first hour felt like the ending of Casino Royale, where like they're at the end of Casino Royale, or sorry, the 20 minutes on the boat felt like the ending of Casino Royale. The ending of Casino Royale feels a little wonky to me because throughout the entire movie, they made some good. They did good work laying the seeds for a little chemistry between Bond and Vesper.
Vesper. Okay. I
But
see where we're going with this.
I don't think they did a good job throughout the movie, the action movie that was happening, making them fall in love. And then at the end, when like before spoilers for Casino Royale, before Vesper's gotta die, We got to spend 20 minutes telling you, but they're in love though. And
Really?
this,
No, really. They are
yeah,
really no,
like
no, trust us.
I believe it, by the way. It just
Yeah.
feels so, in the structure of the film, it feels so wonky to have a 20-minute uh, side quest of a romance plot until we get back into the action. And the 20 minutes on the boat, I was like, all right, before the action's even really happening, like there are stakes. I think this helped that first hour feel fast is the stakes of Jack Black's character, like big on the lam and them trying to arrest him and this whole thing being an illegal, you know,
Yeah.
like that helps it move along. Um, but the, what was the final thing I wanted to say? Oh, it made me think that uh, some directors worry about the cinema experience is a little overblown. And the reason I say that is in the first hour, I was watching it on my iPad mini. And man, did it feel epic as fuck.
Yeah. I mean,
On my
the music and the sound is crazy. I mean, that
yeah,
definitely it's especially if you listen to it in, with a surround sound or a speaker system of some sort. I mean, it really pulls through
yeah.
and it really feels it adds that tension, it adds that like building of everything.
And some of that hour, it was in picture-in-picture mode, so it wasn't even the iPad mini size. And I've just heard like friends or directors or YouTubers like go, and they're changing cinema because they're anticipating people watching it on their phones. The death of cinema. And I'm like, maybe make better movies. Because yes, the cinema experience is valid, and like there's having a crowd with you, that energy. My God, Endgame with a crowd,
Yes.
woo! But if I don't want to watch Endgame in a theater, if I'm a person who doesn't want to go into a crowd, that wasn't even connecting back to COVID. I was just in general. Then let motherfuckers watch it at home. You know, like people will cry the death of cinema if those Warner Brothers movies day and date, like they didn't make a lot of money in the theater. It's like, yeah, but I enjoyed Matrix Resurrections at home, and I probably liked it better because I didn't have to pay $20 for kind of.
Yeah, I'd be
It was fine.
disappointed.
Yeah, a bigger price tag means I have more expectations, which means I will be more critical of your film. Anyway, all to say, this is a gorgeous experience, no matter what size screen you're watching on, as long as it's HD. Like, please don't do potato resolution. But yeah, man, this was.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
thought
fun. It's definitely good. It's definitely fun. Definitely good experience. Um, if you can, I'd watch it with some kind of speakers or something like that, just to really pull through some of that epicness and the grand scale of how big King Kong is in the world. And I mean, he's only 25 feet tall, but I mean the grandness that he brings to that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. This was I'm more excited about revisiting this film than I thought I'd be. And I thought I'd like it. I thought I'd be like, yeah, we knew this was a good movie. Sure.
Yeah.
Good job, movie. But no, like people should rewatch it. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. This is yeah, like I said, I'm going to rewatch an over 3-hour movie immediately to watch it with my daughter. That has to say something. Anyway.
All right, let's get out of here. Let's get to the spoiler section.
All right. The affiliate link is down below.
Boom. We remembered.
So now you have the chance to watch it before you listen to our spoiler review. Thanks for hanging out, gals. These gals, me and Brad, are got to figure this out to make it a little more streamlined, I'm sure. But yeah, we'll see you then.
Toodles.
Should we say our rating? We should say. We did.
Yep.
This may be an edibly mushroom,
Or a straight edible.
but either way, it's dope. As movies
Movies
are dope.